During my speech, which is introductory to this day and goals of our project, I'd like to give some general information about the topic of protected areas and biodiversity of parks and the competencies of the Lombardy region, because this is a very specific moment for us, an important opportunity, because it's the beginning of a new legislation that provided for the responsibility of biodiversity and systems of parks within a general direction, the territory and green systems direction that also deals with soil protection, systems of knowledge. So these topics are related to the topic of biodiversity, and they allow us within the direction to start an important path to reach the goals of the biodiversity projects, which is to work going to put together different policies and try to find some spaces to promote measures that boost and favor biodiversity. We generally think about biodiversity as something different, but I've actually seen some amazing stuff because we protect biodiversity in the great infrastructures. So the possibility to intervene on different activities and regional policies definitely is important. Today, we will hear different testimonies, and we will be hearing the way we would like to move on, because this is not an ending point, but it's a starting point. You've been working on it for 8 years. You've done so much. And I said you because I just arrived when it already started. But this is an important moment. Alessandra Norcini during the day will tell us about the perspectives for the future and the projects we want to carry out and develop. An important project, an innovative project, Life Gestita 2020, an integrated project that tried and integrate measures and actions. Interesting resources, 17 million euros, but for the future we will probably have higher budget. 8 years of work, and I'd like to thank all the foresters, the Lombardy Foundation, Comunità Ambiente, and others companies that co-funded the project. Also because this project, as you know, intercepted many profiles, many figures, many people, 190,000 people they got in touch with, also considering all the actions and all the activities. As for the results, I'll give you a few figures because I got really impressed by all the figures. They made more than 26,000 activities, which is a big number. I was telling the colleagues, we can see by the posters the work behind this. 41,000 hectares of habitats and 167 protected species, 19 projects about invasive species, 114 hectares of habitats for birds in the west zones. I've seen other species I didn't know about, and some bird life I wasn't aware of. 284 kilometers of linear interventions in lines that were secured for birds, and that's an important part of measures. But there is another part which is very important for the experience we gained, that is the part of training, because training means creating culture. And I think that environment, biodiversity, and these topics really need to increase and create a culture in the citizens and people. Later, I'll give you some figures that position the Lombardy region in the national European framework, because the thing of doing culture is fundamental for us. I would say 542 training events that interested about 40,000 people. So very important figures. I would say that I wanted to give you figures about the positioning of the Lombardy region. The first figure I want to give you, the first figures are about protected areas. We are in a territory which is 23,000 square kilometers, and 40% of the territory is about mountains. 14% of territory is urbanized. So the most urbanized areas of the regional territory are the ones of a city of cities Milan, Bergamo, and Russia. But in this situation, we have a 23% of the territory which is made of protected areas. We have the National Park of Stelvio, 24 regional parks, 67 natural regional reserves, 3 state natural reserves, 33 natural monuments, 246 sites of Natura 2000. 15.7 of these are Natura 2000 websites, and I was saying that the 14.3% are the urbanized area in the Lombardy region. This is very complex because all this heritage is managed by 85 different agencies, which is an important figure when we think about what we have to do. We also have 166 bodies, the so-called police, which are managed by the municipalities. So all this system of protected areas is in a territory that has a 28% protected for other matters, for different limits due to security, for the protection from floods, and so on. So we're talking about the territory within which the protected areas have an important role, both in terms of opportunities and real areas, because they represent a huge opportunity for, of course, biodiversity protection. I was saying that this arrives in a region where we have to manage some problems. We have 10 million citizens. So that's the first important problem, because the citizens are 420 per square kilometers, a high density, which is higher than the other European regions, such as Catalonia or Alps. We have 1,506 municipalities, of which 70% has less than 5,000 citizens. All of this has also 70,000 kilometers of streets, 2,000 kilometers of railways, 3 European corridors, that has to be developed. When we talk about environments, protected areas, biodiversity, and green corridors, we know how the fragmentation of the territory impacts the possibility to manage these areas, but we also know that in order to develop our region, these infrastructures are fundamental. We have 815,000 companies, which is an important figure. With the moderator, we will talking about the importance to involve companies. Tomorrow, we will be hosting here 2 days of a very important event of the European Commission summit that deals with nature and business. We have companies there, and these 2 days we will be talking about what companies can do to protect the territory and biodiversity without doing things that may have a different agenda. 815,000 companies, so 22% of the GDP, we all know it, but we are the first agricultural region of Italy. I don't remember the important number, but more than 60% of the territory is dedicated to agriculture. That's an important figure to consider, because apart from all the limitations we have, we also have wide spaces or territory which are dedicated to agriculture. Sometimes they can help us in protecting the territory and developing biodiversity and protecting the environmental goods, but we also know that there are other matters and other problems. I was telling this because when we deal with any policy. I took care in the past of transportations. We have to consider the complex reality when we have to decide and set some strategies. We will be talking about the national legislation and policy later. And this person will highlight how to integrate this approach, but we realized it, and the Lombardy region had a document which is a law that changed the concept. It is the Regional Program of Development. It's a document that indicates the goals that can be measured and is to be entrusted with the regional entities on the basis of the political program of the legislation. For the first time, this document became the regional development, the Sustainable Regional Development Program. If you take this document, which is published on the website of the region, and you read the goals are set. We have Lombardia Green, different goals, and there are some indicators that can be measured and that are very precise, maybe in some cases even way too precise. I'll just give you a couple of examples. Referring to our general direction, which I was saying for the first time, as also competence on biodiversity, green systems, and parks, along with the one of the territorial planning, the soil defense, and so on. We are reviewing the regional territorial plan, which is an important tool of planning. And in this revision, we are giving importance to the topic of biodiversity and protected areas. We worked so hard on the knowledge framework. We have an important information territorial structure, which is very advanced in our context. They provide much information and have been further implemented, and they implemented the data banks about the environment. We established some goals to increase biodiversity and the ecosystems, and they're part of the goals of the plan. We have detected, identified strategic projects about the regional ecological network and the green ecological network, and we also provide instructions and guidelines to municipalities that have to implement these measures and reach these goals in their local planning, so territorial, provincial plans. This is because in order to reach some goals, we have to make a system giving instructions at all institutional levels to act toward a certain direction. We also deal with hydrological problems. We've never had that many resources to intervene with works of defense of the soil. We invested millions and millions of euros in 5 years, and we did 200,000 interventions. These interventions, and we're working on it and studying this opportunity, they're an opportunity to do biodiversity because we intervene on rivers, on water basins, we do expansion tanks. We visited some of these establishments, and some of these establishments are already designed to favor, and I'm talking about the navigation tanks, local biodiversity. And it's working because these tanks are not always tanks containing water, but in most cases, these tanks are natural areas which, with that in case of need, they can receive the extra water. In that situation, These are incredible opportunities to do biodiversity. Of course, there also are natural engineering works and other works that allow us within these policies to do biodiversity. I gave you so many figures, but I wanted to do it because it's the first time, at least for me, to be here and talking about in such a context. And somehow I can give you, I can explain you how we're moving in the direction we're following. And we know that we have some times until December before the formal closure and ending of the project. And we think we have to dedicate this time to information and communication. We've done so much that probably now what we have to do is communicating it, because most of the time we do many good things, but as an institution, we cannot communicate properly. A second thing, I'm asked, and I would like to thank the monitor of the project of the European Commission, so Alberto Quazzianita Fassio, and I hope that they can verify along with us the quality of the results we obtained from this project. Just a couple information. The first one, you know that there will be a workshop in the afternoon that will allow us to talk with the use help strategy. And the second important thing, from tomorrow, we will start the works for 2 days of the European Commission on this European Business and Nature Summit, which is an important event because, as I was telling you earlier, it's an event of the Commission, and they chose to do it here in Milan. So for us, it's a very important chance because, as I was saying, we have 800,000 companies, 54,000 agricultural companies. So it's a constantly evolving reality, which is more and more sensitive to this topic. So we have to involve it in a proper way, and they can help us in this regard. I will end thanking the colleagues, my regional colleagues, for the results they achieved with this project with all of you, but also for the organization of this morning, because when I was remembered that I was seeing some sweaty people, it was one of my colleagues that was here early in the morning. Enjoy this day.